welcome to FunnelStory podcast, and thanks for joining me. As we do it all the time, let's start with a quick introduction of yours. Go ahead, Alok.
Thank you, Alok. Great to be here. And it's good to talk to a namesake. And I think the two of us got introduced by a third Alok. So a lot of coincidences. But I'll start with my background. I'll start right from the beginning. I grew up in Mumbai, India. Did my undergraduate degree out of India itself. Came here for grad school. Went to University of Southern California. And then my first job out of school was at Cisco Systems. So I started off as an engineer. And that is where I want to say that I found my calling, my love for customers. This is when I was talking to some of the largest enterprises like Amazon. So this is more 2003, 2004 timeframe. So I'm dating myself a little bit. But talking to some really smart engineers at Amazon, at PayPal. PayPal was part of eBay at that point in time. And after that, I moved into a technical marketing role, which is where I got my first leadership opportunity. And from there, then I quickly moved into product management leadership as well. And so this was between 2003, 2010, and then I quit Cisco to start my own company. So me, along with three other people, we co-founded a flash storage company called Agile. We built that business out, got acquired in 2017 by Western Digital, spent 2018 and 2019 there, and then joined Rubrik in 2020.
Post-COVID or pre-COVID?
So it was post-COVID. So I joined Rubrik in August of 2020. So this is right after the shutdown, right after the pandemic had started full blown. And I want to say for almost a year, I had met very, very few people in the company, let alone my direct team. So it was only in the fall of 2021 where I met my own leadership team on my side for the first time. And then slowly over the next several weeks and months started meeting more and more folks on my team.
Awesome. So tell me specifically, I'm interested in the time period when you started your startup in 2009, you said.
2010.
2010. And at that time, you were a product manager while you were at Cisco, if I that got correct. So what was your role in Agile?
It's Agile, yeah. So we were four of us when we first started. So we basically divided the company into four parts. And I took over all the customer-facing functions. So I had product management, technical marketing. I was also doing performance testing because we had little to no QA at that point in time. But I was also the sales engineer, going and getting our first 10, 20, 50 accounts, customers. I was also the professional services engineer, so I was going and doing deployments. I was also the support guy. And so I had all of these different functions when we first started. Of course, as we started growing, I realized that I need to focus on a couple of areas versus keep all of these different varied functions. And one of the decisions I made was I had already done engineering, I had already done technical marketing, I had already done product management, I had already done all of these different roles on the corporate side or the business unit side of the house. I had never actually done sales engineering. And throughout my career, I've always worked a lot with sales engineers and account executives. So as you can imagine, being a technical marketing engineer or being a product manager, I was the subject matter expert for my products. And so I was working a lot with the sales teams as the worldwide SME to go and help with penetrating accounts, closing deals. And at Agile, I made the decision that I've done a lot of these different roles. I've never done sales or sales engineering. And so that's where I started focusing a lot and absolutely fell in love with the role. I actually think that sales engineering is one of the best roles in technology because if you think about it, it's two roles tied into one. There's the engineering part of it, which satisfies the curiosity of the mind, where you're able to build things, where you're able to solve problems. And the second role is the sales aspect of it, where you're trying to figure out what moves the needle for your customer. It's trying to think about how technology solves business goals or solves business pain points. Actually fell in love with it, and that's where I focus a lot of my energy at Agile, which is growing in building a sales engineering team and just scaling that.
So tell me, I think you have spent almost a decade now I will say in sales and sales engineering specifically, I think your last three roles all have been leader of sales engineering, right? So if I have to ask you, and and I will give you the context why I'm asking this, that my background has been product management, and I have watched participated in a lot of sales engineering calls over a period of time. 10 years back, when I used to ask that whether this deal will close or not, most of the people were very comfortable with saying they had a good idea whether this will go or not go. They were spending time with the people, with the customers, with the prospects. And now I don't see that confidence sometimes, as I say it. So if I had to ask you, what is your belief in the intuition of sales? What would be your take on that?
I want to say a sales engineer always knows. They have, I would say, very, very strong intuition. Maybe I should say all good and great sales engineers always know what is happening in that particular opportunity, in a particular sales campaign. The way I characterize it, and I've had people ask me this question previously, which is, how do you know, Alok? Or how does an SE know? I characterize it as what is happening on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis in that particular opportunity. And the way I characterize it is, does this opportunity have energy in the deal? A lot of people say, what do you mean? Because energy can't be touched or felt, but it can absolutely be experienced. And to drive one level deeper, the way that I define energy is, how fast are you getting responses from the customer to questions that you might have? Is the customer asking you questions? What's the quantity of questions? What's the quality of questions? What's the engagement model look like? Are you single-threaded in the account or multi-threaded? Are you talking to just one person in the account? Or is your champion introducing you to his or her peers, his or her management? So are you being multi-threaded in the account? And these are multiple different factors that define the energy of that particular opportunity. And based on that energy, the sales engineer always has a strong intuition.
Let me push back on this point to you. And 10 years back, you had customers who were ready to talk to you. I mean, just coming back to the same point. But now, at least what I've seen, and I'm sure you would have also seen that there is a new generation of customers, whom I call them millennials or Gen Zs, and who are what I call mobile app store trained buyers, who have been trained by mobile app stores to buy, to try before buy, to research everything before they even touch you, to ask fewer questions. Before something like 10 years back, the customers wants to talk to you because they don't have information. There is an information trade that is happening, so you get multiple opportunities to interact both sides of the house. But now the information leverage or trade leverage is reducing. Mm-hmm. So how do you understand customers to the same extent that you were doing 10 years back?
Mm-hmm. So I completely agree with you on that one. I'd say that there are two major shifts that have happened in the last 10 years or so. The first shift is that information leverage is no longer there. If you think about how buying and selling happened 10 years back or more than 10 years back, it was all about, do you have the right relationship? How likable you are, right? And that still remains, but it was all about relationship building or being responsive to the customers. So customers would sometimes have questions, is how fast you're responding to those questions. I would say that in the last 10 years, all that information is available now on the web, right? It's available on the website, it's available on podcasts, it's available on YouTube videos, it's available on a lot of different forums and medium for content. So that's one shift. I'll also talk about a second shift that's happened, which is 10 years back, a lot of decision making was top down in a customer environment. This is where a CEO or a CFO or a CIO or a CISO or a VP of IT would have an inkling on what decision they want to make, and they would push that decision down to the team. what's happened in the recent years is a project or an initiative might still be initiated at the top, but a lot of the decision making power and authority and empowerment now happens bottoms up. Now, to your point, in terms of the shift that has happened and that the lack of information leverage, old problems or known problems with known solutions, you can have cookie cutter solutions for. If you are trying to solve new problems with new solutions, there is no cookie cutter solution. And that is where the role of the sales engineer becomes extremely important, because you want a true consultant who is the master of his or her domain to be able to come and bring his or her vast experience talking to tons of other customers. And how does that experience, along with the technology that sales engineer brings in, is custom fitted for your requirements, your environments, and how does that technology give you an edge on the business goals that you're trying to achieve? What are the positive business outcomes in the best way possible that provides you that edge? If you're trying to solve old problems, known problems with common solutions, there are tons of solutions, tons of content.
So you're saying that where the prior knowledge is not available, that's the point where the sales engineer plays the biggest role, because they would understand where you are coming from. And actually, there are two questions that arise from this. One is, there is something, a different kind of a trade is happening. I think when you go to a customer, I think in my informal conversations with you prior, you have talked about there is an initial state of a customer, and then the sales engineer helps them to convert them to a positive state. Tell us more about it.
I love this conversation. We can talk for hours on this particular thing. You know, B2B sales has been going on for a while, and there are a lot of different, I'd say, sales training that's available. There's a lot of different methodologies that are available. I've done them all. I've done challenger sales, I've done proactive sales. At Rubrik, we use a methodology from a company called Force Management, and I know they're probably doing free advertisement for them. It's extremely important if you think about the value of a sales engineer, the value that they provide. The value of the sales engineer isn't, hey, I sell this product and here are the features that the product provides. That information, to your earlier question, you can go and get that information from the public domain. The role of the sales engineer is to truly listen and understand what the current state of the customer is. And the way that we define it is, the customer is going to be in a current state. That current state has existing issues.
Negative value.
So negative, think of it as negative value or negative consequences. And then you need to either, again, listen and understand what is the preferred future state for the customer. So you have a current state, and then you have a PFS, preferred future state. And what are the positive business outcomes? What are the benefits of that preferred future state? So that is where you have a gap. You have a current state, you have a future state, you have negative consequences, and then you have the positive consequences, or in what you said, negative value and positive value. Before you even talk about what your company does, like what the sales engineer's company does, you have to first understand what is that current state, what's that preferred future state, and what are the outcomes that you're looking for. And that is when the sales engineer truly has to work with the customer to understand what will it take for the customer to go from the current state to the preferred future state.
So if I was contemplating in my mind while you were saying this thing, and it occurred to me that the sales engineer of the past was burdened by a lot of mundane things, giving the information, responding to usual things, which is no longer the case, at least on the information side, but also a lot of things should get automated if they are already not, because sales engineer job is of slightly higher value. They need to be slightly more technical, and I will come to that. And they are more educating the buyer based understanding their specific needs to solve their unique problems. So sales engineer actually has risen in value because of the changes that have happened. So if that were the case, what do you think the future of sales engineering looks like? Like, what is the future sales engineer look like?
So I'll start by saying the SE is the future. The sales engineer role is the future. So when you ask me what's the future of the SE, I'd say that I'll actually turn around and say the SE is the future, and I'll tell you why. To your point, there are multiple different things that are happening, right? Like we've discussed, there's a lot of good information available in the public domain. In the last few years, there's this hot topic around PLG or product-led growth that has come in. If you think about it, I am hugely grateful for a lot of these shifts happening because it has elevated the role of the sales engineer from doing manual repetitive tasks to being a true collaborator with our customers. And so what this has done is, and that's why I say that the role of the sales engineer no longer is to just go and pitch some slides, or no longer just to go and do a cookie cutter demo, or no longer just answering questions. It is truly understanding what the customer's pain points are or what their goals are, and then helping the customer come up with their criteria. Every customer comes up with, hey, for me, I need to have these 10 requirements. But those 10 requirements are no longer cookie cutter. Any project, any solution where those requirements are cookie cutter solutions, there's lots of information out in the public domain. And candidly, for those solutions, you should sell those solutions on Amazon.com. You don't need to go and spend a lot of money doing any of these other different PLG, SLG type scenarios. But specifically to the sales engineer, what I believe that at the end of the day, customers are looking for an edge. And technology is what is going to provide that edge. And if you look at the different roles that a customer interacts with on the vendor side of the house, of course, customers will go and meet vendors at conferences, at local meetups. The one role that really provides good education, good information, brings the power of experience from the whole wide world is the sales engineer. And so I absolutely believe that we will continue to see an evolution in the role of the sales engineer, and we'll continue to see changing models.
I have to ask this. Came to my mind, if the sales engineer role, the way you are talking, and I agree to you, is getting upscaled because of the technology transformation, it would be much harder to get a position in Rubrik.
So I'll come to that. I'll finish one particular thought
Sure,
that I had was,
sorry for that.
If you think about models, right? A lot of companies think of it as, am I going to have a 1:1 model, so one SE to one AE? And a lot of companies will have one SE tied to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 AEs. In the future, I'm predicting that in some areas and some technology companies, you will see that model flip, where you have one account executive tied to 3 sales engineers. And it will depend on how deep the technology is. At the end of the day, it depends on what role offers the most value in the right time to our customers.
That's a very provocative thing to say, because let me kind of push the idea ahead on this. If you have, and if I understand you correctly, if you are saying that there are more technical salespeople required than the commercial salespeople, which means that what customers are eventually looking at is they understand the broad sales dynamic, yes, and the way of buying things are becoming easier. Of course, I'm not undermining the role of sales folks because they have to do their own job. But from a technical point of view, that's the point where actual sales is happening. Mm-hmm. And if that is the case, and there is another change what is happening is a lot of sales are actually happening. Most of the initial sales are smaller. Most of the sales happen later in the once customer has bought something and then they're expanding it. So I think you had said to me, and I want to recall that customer success engineers and sales engineers are the same role then.
So multiple questions in there, but I'll give you a very simple example. When you think about companies going after and acquiring net new logos, you typically have two people in an account team. You have the account executive, you have the sales engineer. The account executive spends a lot of time generating demand, generating pipeline of opportunities. And so, which is why you need a lot more account executives than you need sales engineers. So when you're going after net new logo acquisition, you might have the model of
More.
3 account executives and 1 sales engineer helping at the back. Now reverse that model and think about your existing customers. So you've gone and you've acquired that net new logo. Now you have an existing customer. But with that existing customer, especially if you're a multi-product company, multi-license company, there is an opportunity to expand your engagement, expand your partnership there. But then you don't need to go and create demand. You don't need to go and advertise that I'm here to solve XYZ problem. That part of the work is done. But now with that existing customer, the role that offers the most value is going and working collaboratively with our champion within the customer account, and then finding opportunities on how we can help and assist and engage and increase that particular engagement model. So that's just a simple example of that second model with existing customers. You need more technical sellers. You still need an account executive because there are other parts of the sales opportunity where that role is preferred and that role has that particular expertise. So that's why I said that it's which role offers the most value at the right amount of time. And as we continue on over the next few quarters and years, you will see that evolution happening.
So the second part of the question, is the sales engineering and customer success similar?
I'll probably make another provocative or controversial statement there, which is I absolutely believe that they both should be the same role. At the end of the day, I'll repeat what I said, which is which role is the best person or best role to provide the right value for a particular customer. And a sales engineer, before the sale, before we acquired them to become a customer of ours, the sales engineer has spent weeks, months, quarters, sometimes multiple years working collaboratively with the customer. They are the best knowledgeable, best experienced on that particular customer's environment, and they have the best value to offer post the sale as well. Now, there might be certain situations, certain product areas, certain domains where some parts of that can be outsourced to another role, in which case it might make sense to have a separate customer success department. And we do that here at Rubrik as well. We do have a small customer success department that performs a few different parts or components of what is largely.
But the skill set is the same and the thought process is the same.
And the skill set and the thought process is the same.
So you say interchangeability about that.
There's a lot of interchangeability.
So if now the modern customer success or sales engineering role both being the same, I will now start to contemplate both of them in a kind of a joint mindset. If that's the case, customer success teams have for years now required the use of data and automation to do their job, right? I mean, if you look at some of the many bigger companies that have formed recently, they require data so that it guides them what to focus on, because there are lots of fires going on, lots of requirement going on, and you should be able to handle an opportunity at the right time when that is a concern. And if you have a lot of customers, and of course, every customer success person is not just focusing on one account, they are focusing on multiple accounts at the same time, and they have to automate some of the tasks that they have. If that's the case for customer success engineer, and taking your thesis about they both are very similar in how they are going to approach, why don't we see a lot of data and automation currently in sales engineering, or is it that need has been just realized and it's just coming up?
So I'd say that I think of automation in two areas. One is human automation. So this is where you're automating manual tasks, repetitive tasks, or you have automation to try and track activity. I'd say that on the sales engineering side of the house, there are tools that are available and companies that build tools for this already available. To your point, there is an area of opportunity for automation in the data intelligence field. And I'd say that a lot of those companies have focused on the customer success teams as being their target areas. Not that I want to get hit with a lot of cold calls from these companies, but I do think that they are missing out on an opportunity, because the world that we live in today, a customer does not want to deploy 100 different tools. There is already a lot of proliferation of 100 SaaS tools, 20 different tools, with trying to be best of breed. I actually do think that more and more companies should adopt the model where there is some level of interchangeability or a lot more tight tie-ins between the sales engineer.
So the data is the same and the filter changes based on how you're looking at that.
Absolutely.
There's sometimes the time is constrained for a customer success. It's 1 year. For the sales engineer, it might be 15 days, 30 days.
Absolutely.
Just over that. So we talked about product led. I think that was one of the questions, but you already kind of chatted about it. You talked about a future sales engineer. There is one aspect, and I think you talked about it briefly, but I wanted to kind of you to double click on that. Sales engineer of today is educating a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of, and I was doing a podcast with one of the prior guests in one of my prior episodes, and they said something pretty interesting, and I think you also mentioned something very similar, that generally the sales engineers who are good educator, who train well, are good internally but also externally, because that teaching mindset helps both sides. Mm-hmm. Do you agree? Do you have to agree with that?
I completely agree. I'd say that as I look at what profiles make the best sales engineers, I'd say there are two profiles that come top of mind. The first, absolutely, is SEs, sales engineers, that can. A big part of the sales engineer role is educating our customers, educating our partners, and that's a big aspect of it. So anyone that has that skill set, has that mindset in terms of teaching or education, absolutely will make a great sales engineer. The second profile that I have seen that in my experience they make great sales engineers are technology people from the customer IT side of the house, so on the other side of the house. And in my experience, what I've seen is these are folks that have experienced the challenges already that our current customers are experiencing. So when they come over to this side of the table, they're able to empathize with our customers a lot more quickly. Our customers are able to click, to build that relationship, to build that trust a lot more quickly.
So empathy, patience, higher technical skills, ability to add value, and good teaching.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm just kind of defining the 5 things. Anybody who's looking to join Rubrik, they know the skill set Rubrik is looking for.
Absolutely. I'd say that, and you're right. I'd say that, the good part about sales engineer is it's 2 roles into one. It's a very interesting role. It's a very fulfilling role. At the end of the day, at the end of the week, today, it's a Friday. There's a sense of contentment that a sales engineer had, which is this week I solved 3 problems. This week I helped this 2 customers. The other week I went and educated a whole group of people. But it's also a hard role because it requires a lot of different skill sets. I would say that at Rubrik, we prioritize hiring people with high intelligence, high integrity, and high character. And we've made the investments in the company where we want to hire the best and the brightest in terms of intelligence, integrity, character. And we've made the investments internally in our sales enablement, in our sales engineer enablement teams, where the best and the brightest will get the best training, the best enablement, the best coaching to not just become good at their jobs, in their roles at Rubrik, but to learn lifelong skills that they can take beyond Rubrik as well.
So I have one final question, and that comes to me based on both of our backgrounds. You have been a product manager. I'm till my last role I was a product manager, and one of the things I hold our community responsible and my community responsible to the most currentness of things, that historically and coming from security, I think security product managers took a perverse pleasure in creating products that were complex. I mean, if sales engineer does not have to jump 3 hoops to show the product, and if he does not require a PS suite to sell the product, we didn't feel satisfaction. And then we saw Amazon disrupt all of us by making it simple, and now customers know the products can be sold in a simple manner. So shouldn't the product managers of today should have an incentive, in fact a revenue incentive, that they need to create products that are not only, of course, generate value for customers, but also should have an easier go-to-market. It should be easier to demo, easier to deploy, easier to sell.
I'm a huge advocate of that. Incentives drive behavior. So if you think about it, if a product manager is incentivized or measured or rewarded based on shipping code on time, they're going to optimize and make sure that code ships on time, independent of quality, independent of ease of use, independent of value, and independent of go-to-market and route to market. If you flip that around and, as you suggested, give an incentive or make part of your compensation plan tied to revenue, and other behavior will start to happen, because the lower the friction to the sales process, the lower the friction in terms of the customer consuming the value from the product, the more the revenue and the faster the revenue, which ultimately should be the goal of the product manager.
No, absolutely agree. Thank you, Alok, for this conversation, and this was a great conversation. Thank you for joining.
This was fun, Alok. Thank you so much for having me.